next 4-pack of games, going through what y'all need to know to make some money on these bitches. So this one, there's going to be more money to be made, for sure. These 4 games, obviously, still interesting, as all week 1 matchups are, but I'm not going to waste too much time. Starting with the Vikings, Bengals. So this matchup, it's tough. It's tough for one of these teams, and hint, it's not the Vikings that we're starting with. So this is what I do. I'm going to go through, each game, break it down completely, starting with the run game, kind of get the puzzle pieces together, then the passing game, and then kind of total how many points we're looking at, and you can decide where to bet from there. So starting, with the Vikings and their offense, specifically running the ball, and this is what they do. One of the absolute best in the league at it, up there right with the Rams, with the 49ers, with those elite teams. And what's nice for them, necessary for them, is a lot of their success has to do with the scheme and not necessarily the personnel that's on the field. Now, that is still incredibly important, but positively for them, we're no longer dealing with Dakota Dozier or any of these garbage-ass offensive linemen that we have been before. So specifically, Garrett Bradbury, Oli Udoh, Rashad Hill are all interesting, but not super concerning in their own right. Now, this is the Bengals defensive depth chart, and we're going to be bouncing back and forth as we talk about them, but when you look at this run game specifically, the Vikings are going to be just fine because their offensive line is capable in this game. Brian O'Neill is an elite player who's a dominant run blocker. Ezra Cleveland has proved at the end of last year that he's at least competent. Garrett Bradbury the same, specifically in the run game. And while Oli Udoh specifically is a concern, we already seen that this team functions with bad interior offensive line play. If he's worse than Drew Samia, wow. But I can't imagine that's the case. And again, even if he's as bad, it's kind of whatever. And Rashad Hill has played before and not been too bad. So you're fine there. And while there are strengths to the Cincinnati defensive line, especially in the run game, it's not enough here. DJ Reader specifically, I love as a player, but the Vikings do an extremely good job of just avoiding interacting with interior defensive linemen. And while him and Larry Ogunjobi can get in the backfield, neither of them are really scary here. And as edge defenders, man, Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, very similar players. Both guys are going to do okay out there, but are not of the level required to consistently limit the Vikings. More concerning, though, the linebackers of the Bengals, some of the absolute worst in the league as far as the starting unit goes. People like Logan Wilson and Akeem Davis-Gaither, and I will grant that rookie linebackers aren't very good most of the time, and they fit into that, but they weren't exactly showing things that made me think they're going to be better. And again, it requires a high level of player to actually hurt the Vikings offense, which really, really doesn't exist here. Their other pieces are okay. Mike Hilton's very good. Von Bell is actually reasonable as a box safety, but it's not enough. So you're talking about a team, the Vikings, who is going to be able to consistently run the ball the way that they want to without a whole lot of concern behind it. And then the passing game, which is normally the more important of the two, once again, they're really comfortable. Pass rush wise, I am a little scared of DJ Reader, but he's not exactly a notable pass rusher. I mean, he's fine. He's underrated, I think, there, but not someone you're terrified of. And on the edges, man, they're comfortable. Brian O'Neill, way, way better than what he's facing here. And while Rashad Hill can be attacked by elite players, Bengals don't have that. Trey Hendrickson signed for way too much money. He's a useful player, but as a number one pass rusher, he just isn't going to provide enough pressure to live up to his contract. He's a guy who is – if he's your third option, whatever, he's playing next to really good guys like he was in the Saints and Cam Jordan, David Onyemata, then he's going to try hard and do decently, but not some guy who's a driver by himself. So you're pretty much okay there. And the Vikings are super efficient at attacking down the field, especially if they're not super threatened at the line of scrimmage. And with Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, they're still very, very good on the high end. And while the Bengals corner depth chart, I think, is better than people realize, what they do lack is elite players, which is something you can't really do against the Vikings because they have those two elite receivers at the top, which means you're going to have Kirk Cousins mostly comfortable in the pocket attacking a secondary that's not going to be able to keep up with him. Jesse Bates is good. Like, they do have limiting factors. I don't know that the Vikings are going to go crazy offensively, but you have to ask yourself, where are the Bengals winning? And it's just not really there. On the other side of the ball, so I have the Vikings at 23 to 30 points. So as you see, I don't think they're going to go like crazy. It's the other side of the ball that is the concern here, because you look at this Bengals offense and they are just not – they're not in a good spot. Their offensive line is, I guess, a little bit better, but it's still pretty bad. Trey Hopkins is not a good center, not a positive player. Xavier Sufiel and Quentin Spain are the strength of the offensive line, but neither of them – I like Quentin Spain, but neither of them are particularly good. And while they bring in Riley Reif, he's just okay. And Jonah Williams, people like a lot for some reason, but when he's been on the field as a player, he's just frankly been bad. And that really comes up here because, don't get it twisted, this Vikings defense is very, very good. They went through a bunch of issues last year because they had effectively the worst defensive line and worst pass rush in the entirety of the NFL. If you look, however, not a single one of the players who played last year is going to play time this year outside of DJ Wonham, who was probably the best of the group last year and was a rookie who clearly got better by the end of the year. You look at what they throw out there now, and it's scary. So we'll start with the Bengals offensive line or running game, offensive line specifically, and it's just bad. Where do they win at the line of scrimmage? And the answer is nowhere. Quentin Spain again is probably their best at it, maybe Riley Reef, but with Danielle Hunter back, he's a absolutely elite run defender. Don't forget how good he is. He's right up there behind Myles Garrett with the Bosa brothers, with TJ Watt as he's that good. And then their interior guys with Michael Pierce there, with Alvin Tomlinson, they're just going to not get moved off the line of scrimmage ever. And Dalvin Tomlinson can get in the backfield. Sheldon Richardson is a rotational guy, still a good run defender as far as penetrating and making plays, who will beat the offensive lineman here. It's just not good enough. And without Anthony Barr, I will say the Vikings run defense takes a hit, but they're fine. Eric Kendricks is still going to be good about it. Their other guys, while a little concerning, it's just not that big of a deal, especially with a team that's not going to be able to run the ball very well outside of positive matchups anyway. Without Barr, I will give him a little credit, but whatever. So then the passing game, is that better for the Bengals? And not really, man. So pass rush first. Again, Danielle Hunter's terrifying for this team. Danielle Hunter is going to baby both of these tackles. Like Riley Reef is very good about being neutral with non-elite rushers. Once you do catch the actual elite guys, he's not awful. He's not going to get babied, but he cannot keep up, and Daniel Hunter is in that category. And like I said, Jonah Williams is just kind of bad on the other side. So while I will grant that the other edge rushers for the Vikings aren't amazing players between Weatherly and DJ Wonnum, they can do enough there. And on the interior, Dalvin Tomlinson, despite being a run-first player, is a relatively relevant pass rusher. And Sheldon Richardson is still very good about it, and will consistently win against these interior guys, or not constantly, but there is real pass rush there with the high end of Neil Hunter. And the rest of the stuff, frankly, the Bengals are just going to struggle to win. Their receiver group does have strengths. If Jamar Chase turns out to be worth the pick he was, they're going to be a lot better. But as of now, I don't know that there's a reason to think that. We're talking about a rookie receiver in his first game. Generally, rookie receivers aren't very good. You notably have an exception to that on the other side of the ball, Justin Jefferson, but assuming that is going to get you in trouble. And really what you're looking at is a player, Patrick Peterson, who's probably going to match up very well with Jamar Chase. The player depends on physicality. That's what Patrick Peterson is still very good about. T. Higgins, who's going to be good as a baseline, but not going to be dominant. The Vikings do have Cam Dantzler, Bashad Breeland, whoever starts on the other side, who are going to be able to at least keep up with him. And Tyler Boyd is a player that I have issues with because people think about him as being very good, and he's just benefited a lot from the scheme he's played in. He has very strong hands. He does find things underneath, but it's not like a driving player. And Mackenzie Alexander, who the Bengals would have grown to like last year, basically missed all last year with injury, is a good slot corner who, while he's not going to shut down Tyler Boyd, is enough to keep him from consistently winning. So you're talking about receivers who are going to do, okay-ish, I guess, behind a offensive line who's not really going to stand up, and with a quarterback in Joe Burrow who was decent as a rookie and I would fully expect to become very good in the future, but is not there right now. And with Mike Zimmer, given a defense with a competent defensive line, it gets really, really tough really quick. People forget how good the Vikings are defensively, or would be defensively, without a crazy kryptonite level weakness like they had last year, and it's going to get tough. So I have the Bengals scoring 10 to 17 points, so I will still give Burrow a little bit of credit. Their receivers aren't bad, but that is even a stretch, to be frank. And with this line only being 3, this is the first of the year that I'm putting money on this. The Vikings being only favored by 3 is kind of really disrespectful, to be honest with you. It's really, really hard to see any way the Bengals are meaningfully competitive till the end of this game. And I really like the under 2 for that reason. The only thing with that is the Vikings could get out of control offensively with running the ball, giving a bunch of attempts. I don't really see that happening. Like I said, I would be comfortable with that. But Vikings -3, I like a whole lot. So the next game, Cardinals versus Titans. So here, 2 reasonable rosters, to say the least. Maybe better than that. But, starting with the Cardinals offense. Now, Cardinals are in a really interesting spot with their offense. And I'm not totally sure how it's going to work out, hence why I'm not, spoiler alert, going to feel super strongly about betting on this game. But with the addition of Rodney Hudson, there's a chance that Kyler Murray goes crazy this year. He's a guy who really likes to put the ball in the air down the field. And what was limiting him from doing that, he still did it a lot, but from doing it probably the most in the league, outside of like Tom Brady and the offense he plays in, was the complete and utter paper tissue that made up the Cardinals center position last year. He just couldn't step up into the pocket reliably, and a lot of times he would end up having to scramble out, which led to a lot of his rushes and positive plays, but also led to a lot of throwaways, a lot of dangerous throws. With Rodney Hudson there, you were taking a huge weakness and making it a really big strength, and I think it's going to go positively. So first, let's get the run game out of the way. Cardinals are just not good at it. They don't scheme it very well. They don't have guys along their offensive line who play that very well. Kyler will add to that with his legs, but that's not what we're talking about. We're rushing the ball, right? We're talking about, picking up consistent yardage on the ground, handing the ball off. That's just not going to be the case here as a baseline for the Cardinals. Now, I will say the Titans are fine as a run defense too. Jeffrey Simmons is a high-end player. They bring in Denico Autry, a guy I like a lot who can stand up on the interior. Bud Dupree comes over, and while I have issues with him as a high-end pass rusher, definitely a positive run defender. Same with Harold Landry's okay, and they have good interior guys. Like, they're overall solid run defense as long as they're not playing somebody high-end, which is the case here. So don't expect much from the Cardinals being able to run the ball at all. So the pass game, the more important one. Can they do that here? And the answer, I'm not sure. Normally I have a lot better feel for stuff, but in this game, I guess starting with the pass rush, is it scary from the Titans? No. Jeffrey Simmons is going to collapse the pocket a little bit. He's going to be in the backfield, but he's not Aaron Donald. I don't want to overrate his impact as a pass rusher from the interior of the defensive line. And their other guys aren't super relevant. I like Taylor Tart. I actually think he'd be okay, but not against Rodney Hudson. And on the edges, they're really whatever. Bud Dupree and Harold Landry are both like slightly above average speed rushers who can win in certain matchups, but here – or, whatever. DJ Humphries, Kelvin Beachum are fairly similar in that, kind of like how I talked about Riley Reif earlier, where they're competent and will play well against non-elite rushers. Difference is that's actually the matchup they have here, so I'm kind of comfortable with that. And you give Kyler a pretty reasonable pocket. He's a good quarterback. He's going to make plays consistently. He's going to push the ball down the field. And he has a player in DeAndre Hopkins who's going to be open this whole game. The Titans, they have reasonable corners, all four of those top guys I like in their own respects, but none of them are good enough to keep up with DeAndre Hopkins over a full game. And while the Cardinals' other options are limited to a point, it's not like the Titans are out here playing tight man coverage. This is another soft, disciplined zone team that likes to keep stuff in front of them. But I don't know how well that's going to work with the Cardinals because they can work with that. Because that kind of limits how bad AJ Green and Christian Kirk are about getting open. Then they can work in space, and that's given to them, that type of stuff. So I do think they're going to be able to move the ball up and down the field. And the only concern really I have is the Titans are very, very good at safety, especially as far as pass coverage is concerned. Kevin Byard is an elite player who very meaningfully, directly counters the Cardinals' offense as far as maybe the best true center fielder in the league that we have. And Amani Hooker stepping into the starting role too is a guy that I've liked quite a while as a zone coverage player down the field. So like they are reasonable as far as that goes. And that's what keeps me from the high end, especially combined with the Cardinals and their kind of notable inefficiencies in the red zone, mostly caused by Cliff Kingsbury, who is still their head coach. So I have them at 20 to 27 points. I don't feel super strongly about that, to be honest with you. But as of right now, it's hard for me to see this team not moving the ball, and Kyler's good enough. Like they're going to get in the end zone to a point. So on the other side of the ball, how are the Titans looking? Run game wise, they looking pretty good here. Again, kind of a question mark though that contributes to me not being crazy about this game. But, they're going to get pushed, right? Taylor Lewan is an elite player. Roger Saffold, Ben Jones, like Nate Davis, those are all guys who are proven to be positives as far as the run game goes in the offensive line. And with the Cardinals, their interior guys, obviously they bring in J.J. Watt, who's going to be very good, but I don't know how many snaps he's going to play, especially on early downs where they're playing into a running team. And there are other guys, man. Corey Peters is whatever as a nose tackle. He'll keep up okay, but he's not a difference maker. And there are other spots, like Ifotu was not impressed with as a rookie. Zach Allen, not impressed with it at all. I think he's kind of a bad player, especially in run defense. And Rashard Lawrence was a little bit okay, but again, none of them are like the level that you need to compete with the Titans. What gives me hope is their edge players, Chandler Jones and Devon Kennard, are both fairly high-end run defenders, but neither of them are like stone walls out there. And that's when we get to these interior guys. This has been my concern with the Cardinals from the second they drafted Zaven Collins, is that you are starting Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins next to each other. You know, that has a chance to go really well eventually. As of right now, I'm not so sure because most, as I think I mentioned earlier, most rookie linebackers suck. Like the beginning of the year, they just a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of mispositioning in the run game. Game moves very fast compared to call. Like that type of shit happens consistently, even to the ones who become good. And Zaven Collins is in his first game as a rookie, so that's scary. And Isaiah Simmons is still very much in the learning phase of playing linebacker as a guy who was, touted as a super versatile player. That didn't really happen in his first year. He was just mostly bad and then kind of ended up being slightly okay as a secondary player to a legitimately good linebacker in Jordan Hicks. If they want to win this game, they should just start Jordan Hicks, by the way, but they're not going to. So given what we're working with, that's where I get scared of the Titans or for the Cardinals against the Titans, is the Titans are going to run the ball a lot with Derrick Henry, who is very good at exploiting that type of shit. And that's going to lead to some really big plays by those guys just being in the wrong spot. For as good as this team is in other spots, I really like Budda Baker. He helps. That shit is really concerning. Now, it's not a guarantee bad. I don't know those guys. I don't know Zaven Collins sucks, but I would say it's pretty likely for this first game. Passing-wise, again, boy, spooky for the Cardinals because of their corner situation, right? We are talking about A.J. Brown and Julio Jones against Robert Alford and Luke Barku and Byron Murphy. It's just really bad. A.J. Brown and Julio Jones are super, super high-end players, especially A.J. Brown is a guy who I absolutely love. He's a guy who's super impactful, will meaningfully destroy corners who are not as physical as him in coverage. And what do we get with the Cardinals? We get a bunch of small dudes and or not that good dudes, or both. Actually, Robert Alford hasn't played in multiple years. When he last played, he wasn't very good. He is a fairly instinctual small zone corner who I don't hate in some schemes. In this scheme, though, they played a ton of man coverage last year. I don't know. I can't imagine they're going to here, but he's not a limiter at all. And Byron Murphy's just fucking bad. People like him because he's the highest round draft pick, and he's pretty aggressive, especially from the slot. But if you watch him, he gets burned very, very consistently. He's very undersized and just not athletic the way that you need to be to keep up with these high-end receivers. And when I can't imagine him trying to match up with Julio or A.J. Brown. It's just going to go really badly. And that's the super sketchy part for the Cardinals here, as well as the interior linebacker. So those are like potential game-breaking issues that the Cardinals face. Now, as a pass rush, can they get there to limit that? Chandler Jones is going to matter a lot. He will beat especially whoever ends up starting at right tackle for the Titans. But he's kind of unique as a player in that he doesn't normally win quickly within the first few seconds of a play. It's more of a he was guaranteed to get to the quarterback within like 4 seconds, not so much for that, for whatever reason. It's just how it ends up working out, which is concerning because Ryan Tannehill will throw the ball quicker than that most of the time. So then you're depending on J.J. Watt, who will win. But at his age and against interior, especially with Ben Jones and Saffold, who are know what they're doing, I don't really see the super high end impact there. So I think this passing game is going to be pretty goddamn functional, which combined with the running game, it's concerning. So I have them at 23-30. Why don't I have it the super high end? I think the Cardinals are going to possess the ball enough to keep the ball away from them. And all of these issues, besides the corner thing, are more speculative than guaranteed. Plus, the Titans already have a new offensive coordinator. Arthur Smith did a lot of positive things for this team, so we'll see. I still do like the Titans in this game. Titans -3 at home. Titans to win, all that stuff. I'd feel pretty reasonably good about. For sure, the over/under, that number is just a little high, 53.5. We're talking about two teams who, especially the Titans, can run the ball a lot, keep the clock moving. Cardinals throw a lot of screens, that type of shit keeps the clock moving. So we'll see. Number's just a little high for me, but I would still lean the over. So 49ers-Lions, this is the worst game on paper of the weekend, biggest mismatch as far as that goes. Most of these other games are actually really close, generally going to be really good. This one, maybe not so much. So we start with the Lions. And just announced Taylor Decker starting left tackle out, which kind of hurts in a pretty tough situation, right? We're talking about like an okay offensive line who's put into a tough spot, a quarterback who I have about zero faith in, and weapons who are not weapons at all, really. Right, so let's go through it so we can talk about why, right? Starting with the running game, here the Lions would normally have a chance against a lot of teams. Frank Ragnow is the best center in the NFL. Their guards do play the run fairly well. Penei Sewell, we'll see, as a rookie tackle, is probably not going to be very good in his first game. That's another thing, kind of like I talked about linebackers, rookie tackles in their first game, just mentally, a lot of times are not there. And if it was Taylor Decker, he'd be like, okay. I do like Matt Nelson, actually. He played like good snaps for the Lions team, but as a run blocker, nowhere near what they had in Taylor Decker. And this is not the team you want that against. For as many issues that I have with the 49ers and some of their players, run defense on their front four is not an issue. They are missing, very likely, Javon Kinlaw, which does hurt them, but whatever. Arik Armstead is a very good edge run defender, very, very good. Nick Bosa, too. When he's healthy, he's not quite as good as his brother, but he's definitely up there. Samson Ebukam is got paid because of his ability to contain stuff on the edge as a run defender in this division. And, D Ford, whatever, he's a veteran who can do it a little bit, too. On the interior, too, weight and numbers, Kadavius Street, Kevin Givens, they're fine. I don't like DJ Jones. I don't think he's very good, but he'll stand up okay in this scenario. Zach Kerr, I do like a lot. They're going to be okay. Plus, obviously, elite linebackers. Fred Warner, as far as I'm concerned, tied for the best linebacker in the league with Bobby Wagner. Dre Greenlaw, I'm a huge fan of. Aziz Al-Shaair, those dudes can all play. So they're going to be fine run defensively. And especially with how little they're going to have to worry about the pass, it's tough. It's tough with your line. So speaking of the pass, right, Jared Goff as a mental quarterback is just not there. He's just not good enough to win without the huge boost that Sean McVay and the weapons that the Rams had would give him. There are things he does physically that are incredibly impressive that very few other quarterbacks in the league can do. But you have to know when to do those and why. And he definitely doesn't. So behind this, or in this situation, it gets tough, right? Because pass rush wise, there is some stuff there. Penei Sewell, like I said, first game. Matt Nelson, I like him, but he's not high end. Nick Bosa is a elite pass rusher. Absolutely. He does get to the quarterback very, very quickly with some level of consistency. There are other guys, Armstead, D Ford, when they rotate in, are reasonable. Zach Kerr is enough on the interior to get a little spooky. Arik Armstead moves in there. There's enough pass rush here to matter. And their weapons just are not going to win to the degree needed. Now, I'm changing my mind a little bit with that, with Emmanuel Mosley who's a player I like a lot, getting ruled pretty much out by these doubtful, who's probably not going to play in this game. So you're looking at rookie Ambry Thomas in his first start, which they're going to pick on him, to be very clear. But 49ers do a very good job about helping weak spots defensively. They don't ask all that much about their corners unless those corners are very good most of the time. And with K'Wan Williams, who's an elite slot corner, Jimmy Ward, Jaquiski Tartt are very smart and been around for a long time at safety. That weakness is not exploited all that much. And also, who would it be exploited by? Tyrell Williams is horrible. He missed all last year, so people didn't maybe realize that. Just not a player who consistently separates by any means. Quintez Cephas is a effectively underneath only receiver. Khalif Raymond is a deep threat kind of only, who doesn't even get open. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a late round rookie who some people like, but it's just not nearly enough. TJ Hawkinson as well normally would be the number one focus here, but the 49ers do an extremely good job about limiting tight ends between Fred Warner, their other linebackers, and how good their safeties play. It's just really, really, really tough. So I have the Lions offense at 6 to 13 points. And even that, it's tough. The rookie corner thing is what gets me. That's why they have a chance, but it's tough. So then the other side of the ball, 49ers offense, not nearly as tough for them. So this offensive line, very, very high end. Their tackle duo, especially in the run game, is elite. Lincoln Tomlinson's really good. Aaron Banks is a rookie, but rookie guards generally actually do kind of okay. Alex Mack, they add whatever. He's going to be good in this scheme, I guarantee you, and in this game. And this team is amazing at running the ball. They're the best in the league. They consistently create advantages regardless of how talented they are on the offensive line. And when you combine that with one of the best run blocking offensive lines in the league, it gets really scary, especially, this Lions team. We'll see. They do have real play strength, I will give them. Although Nick Williams, Levi Onwuzurike, and Michael Brockers are all questionable for this game. They need Michael Brockers, but he ain't going to make that much of a difference anyway. But while those guys are strong, you play the point of attack well. What they do notably lack is the ability to get lateral And the Lions are going to do this thing, it looks like, where they're going to have Trey Flowers and Romeo Okwara play as true, like, stand-up 3-4 outside linebackers. I can see situations where that will work. The 49ers is really not one of them. Those two guys are down linemen at their core, and they are going to struggle in space laterally against a team that kills that type of shit. That's really scary. I do like Jamie Collins as an interior player. He's not enough to make up for the rest of this shit. Like, it's going to get kind of bad as far as run defense goes. And once you give that to the 49ers, shit's kind of over for you anyway. But in the pass game, listen, I don't like Jimmy Garoppolo at all. He's bad, but he will do this system fine, especially against a bad defense. That is absolutely proven at this point. And he is supported by Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, who are a trio of elite to very good players who consistently make plays, who are great with the ball in their hands, what this scheme does to a tremendous effect. And this Lions secondary is just not going to – it's just not good enough. Jeff Okudah might be a lot better than he showed last year. I would probably bet on it, but whatever. If he matches up on one of them, I'm not all that concerned. Monty Oruwariye is fine, but he's not going to meaningfully limit whichever receiver he's matched up on. Plus, like I said, they do so much to get them the ball anyway. Their slot corners, like A.J. Parker's never, as far as I'm aware, started or played in a game in his life, is questionable himself. And then they're going to try to match up George Kittle with Tracy Walker and or Jamie Collins, I guess. It's just not – no. So 49ers have a ton of pathways to success. I have them for 27 to 34 points. Only reason it's not higher than that is that Jimmy Garoppolo is kind of bad. But frankly, if it got higher than that, it wouldn't surprise me. So San Francisco minus 8.5. That's fine with me. They're going to blow this team out. San Francisco to win. I would say the under I'm not sure the Lions can score, really, and generally that will favor the under in the game, but 49ers, frankly, might get it by themselves. So then the last game of these four, Steelers, Bills. Another really, really good one. Steelers first. So Steelers are probably going to be a lot different offensively than they were last year, which gives me a little bit of pause as far as betting on this game, but I do still feel pretty good about this one, right? So you start with their offensive line in the run game, and they're just a lot better than they were last year. Last year they had to deal with Alejandro Villanueva and Matt Filer, two guys who have their uses, but run blocking, definitely not one of them. And they go from that to Trey Turner, Kendrick Green at center, and then Dan Moore, who was a late-round rookie starting at tackle. Now, I will fully admit that is a concern. However, if you're going to break in a rookie tackle against a team, the Bills are probably one of the ones you want to pick. So, again, back to as a run game specifically, this team is going from one of the worst run schemes in the league as far as doing a bunch of dumbass draws and shit to a new offensive coordinator who I can't imagine is going to be as bad. They have advantages on the interior specifically. Trey Turner and Kevin Dotson are actually positive players there. Like, they're going to do okay, and this Bills defensive front is very, very vulnerable. Ed Oliver is not worth even close to being worth the pick that he was taken with. He is a marginal interior rusher. There are other guys, Harrison Phillips, Vernon Butler, Justin Zimmer, are like competent, I guess, but are nowhere near worrying if you're an offense. And their edge players, Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison are competent veterans, but again, they are not playmakers in the run game in any means. And these other guys, we'll see. I like Efe Abada a lot, but I don't know how much he's going to play. And then you're talking about two rookies. AJ Epinesa, I will mention, he helps there. I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to run the ball all that well, but they're going to get some push to the line. They're going to be better than they were last year. And I should mention, too, that the linebackers for the Bills, Matt Milano is very good. Terrell Edmonds is okay. And he's going to clean up a lot of stuff. I don't think there's a high ceiling for the Steelers run game, whatever. I don't want to talk about it that much, but Steelers are going to be able to run the ball. So as a pass offense, the more important one, again, I think the Steelers are going to function well here. Ben Roethlisberger is still a super smart quarterback who consistently gets the ball out of his hands quickly into positive scenarios. Now, that was limited a little bit by the Steelers' offense only allowing him to do that. He will throw the ball down the field if it's into positive opportunities. And the truth is that should exist here. He's going to be able to pick apart the Bills, who play a pretty soft zone that they kind of let people do what they want in front of them, which is not a good thing to do against the Steelers because these receivers, while they have their own issues separating, are all varying levels of very good after the catch. Deontay Johnson is decent. Chase Claypool is a super athlete. He's very good. And that is the best thing about Juju Smith-Schuster's game. So that's concerning, especially when secondary-wise, the Bills are not in the greatest of scenarios. Tre'Davious White is way better than whoever he matches up against on the Steelers, but he's only one guy. And that leaves guys, those the other four receivers on the Steelers, who are all effectively the same level of good, pretty close anyway, to beat Levi Wallace and Teron Johnson consistently. Those players aren't awful, but they're not good enough to limit what the Steelers do, and especially they're not always asked to, like I said, play pretty soft zone. The Steelers are going to get a lot of easy completions and shit. That's going to move them up and down the field. If you were talking about a different quarterback or worse quarterback, that's the reason why that shit can work sometimes. But Big Ben is good enough to beat that. And it's not like their downfield coverage is amazing. I like Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde a lot, but they're not, elite players. So this passing offense is functional for the Steelers. And that's why I have them at 18 to 26 points. So they're not going to go crazy, but I can clearly see how they would have decent possession. And with Ben, there are ways for them to succeed against a more or less kind of bad defense. So on the other side of the ball, are the Steelers going to be super successful? The Bills going to be super successful? I don't really think so. This offense obviously was amazing last year. And most of the reasons that this offense was amazing last year are still present. And why is the number one is Stephon Diggs. Number two is the wealth of really good receivers behind a good pass blocking offensive line. I should mention Josh Allen obviously played very well last year. Not really surprising given the situation he's in. This team is just awesome personnel wise for throwing the ball. Right, because they have so many good receivers who are constantly open that every play the quarterback just kind of has to look around a little bit and he's going to see a receiver running into a ton of space. That's what happened last year. That's what will happen this year as we go forward. This specific game, though, I'm not so sure about that. To get the run game out of the way first, they just can't. This team sucks at it. They're really bad. Their personnel is not fitted at all. Their offensive line is just not good. Darrell Williams is the only one who's even like a positive as far as that goes. And against the Steelers defensive front, get the fuck out of here. They are missing Stephon Tuitt. That does matter, but their other guys are fine. Cam Hayward's obviously very, very good as a run defender. TJ Watt's still out there. Shit's not going to happen. So then we can get to the interesting part of the pass game. And what I want people to remember here is that Josh Allen still absolutely struggled with the stuff that the Steelers do defensively, schematically. Quarterbacks who struggle with what the Steelers and or Ravens do, because they do very similar things, almost always struggle consistently against that stuff. And last year, look at the game. Now they beat the Steelers, but it was a lot on the strength of their defense and the Steelers kind of doing some shitty things offensively. And the game against the Ravens in the playoffs, a game that they only scored, 7 offensive points, 10 offensive points. Josh Allen is not elite against that shit at all as a mental decision maker against stuff. The Steelers are throwing a lot of complicated zone blitzes out, that type of thing. Josh Allen does absolutely concern me. Now, overall, I'm not concerned about him. Whatever, that's a unique thing that only really comes up against the Steelers and Ravens, but it is important to talk about, obviously, in this matchup. So he does still have Stephon Diggs, who's going to fucking cook everybody. Stephon Diggs is the second best receiver in the league. But past him, I get a little sketchy because while Sanders, Cole Beasley, Gabriel Davis are all very, 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 very good, they can only be as good as Josh Allen allows them to be. And into this, again, complicated zone defense, I'm not so sure they're going to be consistently winning quick enough or getting into the holes that Josh Allen can see for them to move up and down the field, as is proven, again, by Josh Allen last year. They're still going to be competent, but with how much I think the Steelers are going to be able to possess the ball, it gets tough. And I will mention there is still pass rush. The Steelers do a bunch of that stuff, not just in the secondary, but at the line of scrimmage to create pressure. TJ Watt is an incredibly high-end player who will beat those Bills tackles, despite I think they're good, but they're not good enough to stop TJ Watt. And you have Melvin Ingram, too, on the other side, coming in as a rotational rusher is another guy who's good enough to do that shit. So I do struggle to see the Bills going crazy, despite me being very confident in their offense over the course of the year. So I have them also at 18 to 26 points, which means I think the spread is fucking ridiculous, man. You get almost a touchdown. And I love that with the Steelers because the Steelers could very easily win this game. They have enough to move the ball up and down the field. While there are concerns, the Bills defense is not very good. Big Ben is still a good quarterback, and their defense is not screwed against the Bills the way that other teams are. So I like Pittsburgh plus 6.5 a lot. I still do think the Bills are going to end up winning this game at the end, but I don't feel strongly about it. And then the over, I would generally lean towards the over, I guess. but it's in a really weird spot where it's kind of right in the middle of where I expect these teams to score, so I don't really want to touch it. And that's the next 4-pack. And let's go. Let's talk about football.